Hey, movie fans, Demetri Panos here for Popcorn Talks Anatomy of a Movie, where today we will break down Hidden Figures.
Welcome to Popcorn Talk, featuring movie discussion, news, and interviews. Popcorn Talk, we talk movies. And now, here's Popcorn Talk's Anatomy of a Movie.
Hello, movie fans. Again, this is Demetri Panos of the Popcorn Talk Network's Anatomy of a Movie. Very happy to be back. Happy New Year to you all. I haven't seen you in a little bit. Happy New Year, and welcome back to my awesome co-host, Marisa Serafini. How are you?
Demetri, welcome. Yes, I'm back.
Yeah.
Slightly under the weather.
We both have the timbre in our voices of congestion.
Yes. Thank you, winter.
Yeah. Thank you, winter. Yeah, you had a good trip? Good holidays?
I did, yeah. It was
awesomeness.
a great holiday with the family.
Fantastic.
We watched a bunch of movies. That's
awesome.
all it was.
I didn't
movies.
actually get out to the movies all that often while I was at home. But
I was at home watching movies.
Yeah, but since coming back, I've seen a few. It's great to be back again together with you. And today, we're going to talk about this fantastic movie called Hidden Figures.
Fantastic.
Yeah, and as we always open up, we always talk about opinion, but this is a movie. This is an untold story about in the very early years of NASA. It's almost like the other side of the right stuff, where we see some behind the scenes, but it's a true story about how these women, these African American women, paved the way for our astronauts to go up into space. So what were your thoughts in this movie?
You know, I really enjoyed this movie. When I walked out of the theater, it just left me with such a good feeling and a smile on my face. And as you know, with our previous, shows that we've done here for Anatomy, like, I always appreciate stories that haven't been told yet, and then finding them in movies. And it's like, you know what, I could take more stories like this. We need to tell more stories like this about women paving the way.
Yeah.
And so there was like just so many elements in this film that they hit right. And I think this movie came out in a good time of Hollywood, because I feel like Hollywood is slowly getting to the right side of history, like the progression and acceptance of women and equality and heck, even gender and racism. And I think this film covered all that very tastefully.
Oh my God, yeah. Uh-huh.
And it wasn't in a really negative way, but it just showed you what it was like back in the 60s and like just how far we've progressed in the world since.
Yeah.
And I think this film did a great job showing that.
Yeah, I mean, this is the movie that I was hoping for of all of 2016. I mean, we've had some great movies. Don't get me wrong. But up until I saw this movie, like my best movie, if I was doing a top 10, my best movie at the time was Manchester by the Sea. Very fantastic movie, but very heavy. And we're in the year of heavy movies. Yeah. I mean, it's just, and it's been such a year of uncertainty, just the state of the way things are. And God, I was just like, when I saw this movie, I actually felt good about myself. And we'll talk about it. I want to know what happened to the feel-good movie. This movie was fantastic. It is my best movie of 2016. And it's a movie about hope, as you said. It's about fortitude. It's about overcoming the odds, achievement, and it's about true heroes. Which I love, and it's in a time period too. I love as well, and it deals with NASA and all that. I mean, I'm a big fan of like the right stuff, and this is like the other side of that, as I said, and it's anchored by some amazing, excellent performances, all around, solid storytelling. It never crosses the line for me. It never crossed the line into schmaltz. Like you were saying, I think emotionally it deserves. On every beat, it deserved whatever emotion and applause that it happened. Now, I don't know about you. Like when I saw this movie, there were at least 4 times throughout the film in which the audience that I was sitting with just broke into applause. Can't remember the last time that happened in a movie. And we could talk about certain scenes in which that happened. I don't know. How was it for you?
Yeah, I mean, I watched it with a good audience. There were moments when certain lines were delivered and people were like hollering and whooping, here and there. And I think it was just well received on a lot of different levels. A lot of people watched it, and I went with a very diverse group. There were young people and older people who probably witnessed, the whole launch back in the 60s. And so, it covers the different demographics, and I think anyone can appreciate this film.
Yeah, I think so too. And, and like I said, I can't remember the last time I felt I left a movie feeling good. Like feeling like, wow, not only did I see a really good movie, like again, I'll just say Manchester by the Sea, a really good movie.
Depressing.
But I don't feel like,
your day is ruined.
Yeah, I gotta go. Yeah, I have to chill. This movie I felt really great. So thank you, Hidden Figures. We'll get right into this, because you talked about the 60s. And again, I think that's a part of what makes this movie special as well, because the 60s, there was turmoil happening, but there was this space race going on. And if anything galvanized a country, like this space race, was the 60s. And people paid attention. And it wasn't necessarily just because of the competition between U.S. and Russia, which is really deeply rooted and seated, but it was about this optimism, we're going to go into space, we're going to explore the unknown, and believe it or not, it was this era, this is where the seeds of Star Trek were planted, of going out and this exploring. And watching this movie, you get that sense. They nailed it. You felt that optimism. And even though there was turmoil for these women, there was that fight. It took place in Atlanta. It was the early stages of NASA and what they had to go through just to get to work even. You nailed it on the head when you said it just blended everything perfectly.
Yeah, absolutely. So. And I think the cool thing about it, because I wasn't born or wasn't around this time when the story happened, so I personally don't know what it was like, but I have the concept of what that environment was like. And yes, being in Georgia, so that's a very, and the whole segregation storyline going on, and just that everyday common issue that they also had to fight, let alone try to progress in just technology, but they're trying to progress in cultural society. I think there were two different races, different types of races going on, the space race and then the actual culture race going on.
Yeah. Two different looks at races. And so, it's very interesting because Katherine C. Johnson, played by, I believe, no, that's Fences. Taraji P. Henson, who was fantastic. The person in which she was playing, Katherine C. Johnson, she's quoted as saying, I was just solving problems that needed to be solved. And she was just doing this. She knew that how important this was. The people themselves, and I think this is what makes this movie special too, is these people strive to be where they were, but, they were doing their job. They loved to do their job. It wasn't, they had their families or whatever to take care of and be a part of. But there was no hubris involved in their smarts. And we were talking about here 3 extremely smart women, African-American women, making their way. And I love that quote. I was just solving problems that needed to be solved. And, facing challenges, what she advises people today, because she's still with us today, stick with it. No matter what the problem, it can be solved. A woman can solve it, and a man can too, if you give him a lot of time, she says. I love that quote. But I just love her continued optimism. It can be solved. And you're right. And Theodore Melfi, who's the director, he did that movie, St. Vincent.
Yes, he did. And we talked about that. We
talked about how good a movie that was. And I think he one-ups himself in this movie.
Oh, definitely, for sure. I think the great thing about this particular story is that these 3 women, they're all very bright, intelligent, and alpha females, when you put 3 strong females together, sometimes they can clash, but never once did. I thought they overpowered each other in that way, and they were actually good friends, and that's what I also enjoyed, because they were all progressing at the same time. And the thing about it is, like, they were so humble back then, and in their just character and personality wise, like, they didn't ask for like certain things to happen to them. Opportunities were presented to them, and that's how they advanced, and that's what I enjoyed.
And they had to, but yet they were still thrown hurdles in their way to advance, whether, because of race and everything. But you're right. First, like, a little bit of history too. They were part of they were basically called human computers, and they were their own
in the computations.
Yeah, and they were in their own segregated room, but they were there because that's what NASA needed. They needed human computers.
Their own segregated wing.
Right, their own
the
wing.
West Wing,
And they were called upon, they're almost like temps, in a sense. If a problem needed to be solved, and everybody else was working, they went to this pool and said, hey, we need somebody in this department to help figure this out and whatnot. And they were given, every day, it seemed like they were assigned to a different department if it wasn't for, like, temporarily.
It's like you didn't know what your job was going to be for that day.
Which is fascinating to me, because, again, that was something that was a side of NASA that I didn't know about. I didn't know about that they had. And this was before, this is the other great thing too, this is right on the eve of IBM coming into play. And, for you NASA folks who, IBM ends up playing a major part throughout NASA history and computations. But it was always the human element that they had to rely on, just as they were trying to become accustomed with IBM. And I found that was purely fascinating, and that they were a pool of brilliant women, right? Yeah. So, I loved that. And in the context that they were called NACA. It wasn't even NASA at the time. It was in that before they were going to change on over.
What I liked about, real quickly before you move on, what I liked about the IBM is that it shows that, it was a revolutionary technology that can legitimately propel NASA into space, but it still showed that humans were smarter than computers at the time. Humans were still smarter than technology at the time. And it took a human to set up the IBM system. It took a human to fix the problem that IBM caused, I really enjoyed it to show that it's like, we have technology that can help advance us, but still humans can, win over them.
Yeah, and one of the nation's greatest heroes who recently passed, John Glenn. Right?
Just this past
within the past month and a half, he too relied on the human condition. He specifically asked for Johnson's computations, which I thought, we'll talk about certain scenes and whatnot. So, also this Hidden Figures, the movie, is based off of a book by the same name, by Margot Lee Shetterly. She's the author, and her father actually worked at NASA, which I find very fascinating. So she's sort of kind of in that world.
Yeah.
And it was based on oral interviews, extensive research, and archival information of how women of the West computing met challenges. And, this was a story that she was, even as her father worked there, she was unaware of. And, man, like, you give her credit for parsing this out and going, this is a story that need be told, and there you go.
I really enjoyed it because I was reading one time that she was having a conversation with her father about NASA and how they used humans to do the computations and whatnot, and then that pretty much inspired her to find out because humans do this, what else can they do at NASA and stuff. And then she checked local newspapers, and she found out that there were just so many different people that were being used at NASA, and she just had to write it and formulate it into a book.
Yeah. And then this manuscript comes across an Academy Award-winning producer, Donna Gigliotti, And she reads this and goes, oh my head, like, how do we not know? Like, and when I use the word we, like, I'm saying like we as a nation, as an audience, as a world, like, you know, there's a ton of history, NASA history out there. And if you want to take an amazing footnote of NASA history, watch or read the book, The Right Stuff, which both are amazing, and that'll give you a great snapshot of the true NASA heroism of the time. But this is a behind the scenes that we've never seen. Like, you know, we've seen The Right Stuff. We've seen what ingenuity can do with movies like Apollo 13.
Yes.
You know, right?
All
of them are inspirational. All of them rely on courage, ingenuity, and trying to get things, but we never knew this side. And how is it hidden for such a long time? And Gigliotti was like, we develop a lot of material, but this story was so unique, you know, and it's a part of history that needed to be heard. And I know this was a movie that I had to make. And she struck out in search of a woman writer to take this obscured story all the way to screen, and is exhilarated to find one with a remarkably matched background, Allison Schroeder, who not only studied high-level math, but interned at NASA. So,
even more apropos.
right. And again, high-level math. Whenever they were doing math computations, I was like, yeah, I'm out.
Yeah. No, I was telling my dad, because legitimately my dad is a mathematician. He teaches calculus and trigonometry and statistics and all that, and he needs to watch this film because he can do math equations that like are way above and beyond me. So like watching it is fascinating, but I have no idea what like the equations equaled out to. And I completely believed it. I was like, yep, that math sounds right.
I had to buy it. So, you know, and again, this is a movie that like A Beautiful Mind, and even to an extent, you know, even to an extent, like The Accountant had a lot of math. And I was like going, okay, I'm checked out. It all makes sense. But this made math beautiful. It made being a nerd in that sense. It did make it beautiful. And
not so much a nerd, but like just someone who's like highly intelligent. Can understand.
Yes. Yeah. And you know, and the fact that they were relying on these women, you know, to come in. They relied on their work and their preciseness. I just, like, again, it's one of those things that this movie I find is being inspirational. You know, I can't do math, but I'm just inspired by watching the triumphs, again, of what they contributed to our society, to the United States as a whole, and how with their help, they literally, their work, unbeknownst to many, still helped bring a country together in a very positive way. Yeah. So they were fantastic.
What I enjoyed about like the mathematical aspect is that I didn't realize like how often it changed. Like how fast moving that they were. Like they'd be in a meeting and then they would change the numbers, and then their whole day's work was literally null and void. I appreciated that because like that's why that they had a room full of all these people just computing numbers, because that is how fast they were working. Yeah. Like if you're off by so many weights, you know, like pounds of weight for a person like mass, it changes like the whole aspect. Yeah,
absolutely. And if you change the configuration of a window, boom. Yeah. Number's gone. We got to go back to the drawing board again. And I found that very fascinating, but it makes so much sense. And you had these people who would like take that and figure that out. Like we changed the window size. Yeah. And now you got to go back to the drawing board.
We added this type of material to the space, to the capsule, and change the weight of it. And, you know, it's
very fascinating.
Like you wouldn't think about that, but that's what they did.
Yeah. So, you know, and then again, you know, Theodore Melfi, you know, he talked. He wanted the film. He goes and quotes, "I wanted the film to explore the part of the story which is not documented at all, which is what it was like for 3 African American women to be working in segregated NASA." Okay, segregated NASA, even as all these accomplishments were taking place. I love the double meaning of the title because so often women have only been looked at as superficial figures rather than great figures. And I like that too. but these women were the literal hidden figures that changed the space race. And they were, and I'm so happy that it got brought to light. And again, we'll go back. It's such an inspirational story about that. So the other great thing, we're talking about mathematics, is that this film actually had a mathematical consultant.
Oh, I believe it.
Right? They had a mathematical consultant who still spun the heads of like the likes of Taraji P. Henson, who was like, she had to study this so that it comes out natural. She's like,
Yeah.
They're all in the creative stuff, right?
Yeah.
Math, each one says math is really not.
No, it's true,
my
because
thing.
they're two completely different sides of the brain. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
an art major, math goes over my head. But yeah, the funny thing is, Taraji P. Henson said in an interview that the math kind of made her scared a little
Yeah.
bit, but she, as an actor, she was able to memorize equations, but still not exactly know what it means.
Right.
But she memorized it and therefore added to her acting. So.
Yeah, so I'm trying to think, like, with the flow of this, let's talk a little bit about, let's talk about, well, we mentioned Taraji P. Henson. Let's talk about her for a little bit, because let's go to Octavia Spencer, because she was one of the earliest. Her and Pharrell were the earliest people to come on board. Octavia Spencer read this manuscript and said, I got to do this movie. I have to be in this movie. Pharrell was brought in, or wanted to do it, because he lived 10 miles away from NASA.
Yeah, he grew up in that area.
Grew up fascinated by it, and he bugged Gigliotti to death to be a part of this movie. What can I do? What can I do to do this? And he comes out. So the two of them were on board first, which I think is great.
I think that really helps, because both of them are very well established in their careers, and I think it helps with a film when you already have like well established people already on board, and therefore
Right.
like the rest just kind of follow along, and everything else just falls into place.
Yeah.
That's happened so many times on other films too, when like a big name has been involved, and then like the rest just follow.
Yeah, and they did follow, but what I like about it too is that they believed in the story. It's one thing to get an actor on board. It's like, yeah, I read the script and everything, but they came on board and like before this was even close to like, even before they were starting to set out casting for this. And Octavia Spencer's role in this, I love that each woman, I initially thought they all worked together, but they don't. They each worked in different departments. One was engineering, the other one was the mathematics of the launch, and Octavia Spencer was more of the computation, the computing and programming. And she ends up being integral to the new IBM coming in and programming all of the data. So we have three separate storylines going on, but yet they all intertwine because they're all needed. That I really appreciated about this story, because for some reason, maybe through marketing, whatever, for some reason I thought they were working together, but I thought they were literally working together.
I agree, and like I found that actually refreshing, because you think, I think that also goes with what I said earlier. It's like if you put three females together constantly, you might get that clash, but because their storylines were so separate, we hardly saw them together, and that's why I think they all, there was a good balance between all these three storylines, which I enjoyed. But the fact that, yes, they were friends, and at the end of the day, they were still in the same place. And I love the line, like, when Johnson just got her job for the first day, and they were waiting for her at the end of the day because she got longer hours. Like, next time you're taking the bus.
Next time you're right.
So, like, they had to wait for each other, even though they had different jobs. But the fact that, like, they got to NASA and left NASA at the same time together, it just shows that they were in it all together.
Yeah. Now, something else that's interesting, I want to just quickly go back to Theodore Melfi, because they were trying to find a director for this, and he had come off of St. Vincent. Now, interestingly enough, and this is something, again, I did not know, Theodore Melfi was up for directing Spider-Man, the new Spider-Man Homecoming movie. And he actually opted out of Spider-Man to do this movie. And to me, that's amazing because, and I show good form, like by doing Spider-Man, you're going to really put your name on the map. Like, people are going to look at you and they're going to start hiring you for more of those bigger franchise kind of pictures. But I sort of appreciate the fact that he sees this Hidden Figures manuscript script, and he was so in tune with the story that he says, you know what, this is the movie that I really want to direct. And we'll never know if he was suited to do Spider-Man Homecoming, but he was certainly suited to do this movie. And I'm glad that he did, because he really did tell a story that I think cinematically should be told.
Yeah,
and he did it perfectly.
I think it's good that he opted out of Spider-Man because, like, no offense to Marvel, because Marvel's doing great on their own. But I think this was, you can definitely tell this was a passion project. This, like, that there's art and history in this film, and I think this one will stand alone. Whereas all the other Spider-Man movies are already lost within how many Spider-Man movies have they already made? I've already lost count. And you're not going to remember all the directors of those movies. And I think his name will just get lost in the shuffle in something so big.
But it's a meal ticket. Spider-Man is a meal ticket kind of.
I'm not knacking Marvel whatsoever.
No,
like,
I understand.
They're great. But I think the great thing is, like, he did this for, like, the art and for the story. And I think this one has just more substance for film.
Yeah.
To be a director, to be a part of, and I think that's good for him.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I'm so glad that he was on board. And then we were looking at Taraji P. Henson and her role in this movie. Number one, as Katherine G. Johnson, I felt she was perfectly cast. It's because she was strong, good-hearted, and when push came to shove, she could stand up for herself. And there's one scene in particular, the scene where, she had to go to the restroom. She had to go like a mile and a half a mile.
Yeah, just to go to the restroom.
To go to the restroom. And she had to fight and claw her way. Every single day at work, she was always in competition with all the other mathematicians trying to solve a problem, and then going to the restroom. It's like, well, where is she? And they're thinking she's taking that long break. But that one scene in which it was just a rainy day, and she got stuck, and she had to take her files with her. And she runs, and then she comes back, and she's all like wet. And Kevin Costner's character comes up to her, and then she just unloads. And that was one of the times that audience applauded.
Yeah.
But her performance was so amazing that I can even imagine being on set that day. Even Kevin Costner says, yeah, it was a very strong, intense moment. Taraji P. Henson has said in interviews, she goes, yeah, I'm all wet. She goes, I knew exactly where where this was coming from. And she delivers this amazing speech that says, yeah, I have to walk over it because I can't use your bathroom. I can't use your coffee. And this is a person who, she was having
But I'm doing the
day.
same job as all of you.
Yeah, and I'm doing the same thing.
Yeah.
But it could have been so overplayed. And
I agree. It could have been so overdone, but this performance, it was like so on the nose. It made it so believable, and you just felt for her. You didn't feel bad for her. You just like understood where she was coming from.
Right.
In fact, she had to do that multiple times a day.
oh my God.
The girl got some good cardio, but it was just unfortunate that, like, yes, she was in a room full of all white males doing the exact same work and doing like maybe like even better work than some of the men, because she was checking everybody else's work too.
Yeah.
But like, I just felt bad for her. She was doing this same job as everybody else, and yet she was still treated poorly and unfairly in that situation. So like, I'm glad she stood up for herself in front of everybody.
And again, it's one of those moments that is rare today. Like, the feel-good movie like this is like just so rare. And it's one of those literally you want to applaud. that's what really, like, this kind of cinema, that feel good, like, we need more of, in our state of time. So I think that her performance is great. We talked a little bit about Octavia Spencer, and then I want to get into Janelle Monáe. But Octavia Spencer, who we said was early on in this project.
She's a great actress in and of herself.
She is a great actress. She can do drama. She can do comedy. Right. I mean, she can do it all. And, she'd never heard of this story before. So she thought it was historical fiction. And she had just done The Help, which is historical fiction. And after doing a little research, she was like, oh, wait a minute. This is an actual story. And she needed to be part of that telling. So good for her. She knows going into the other thing about this movie itself, it's a period piece. Period pieces sometimes have a hard time getting off the ground. As soon as you mention, it takes place in a different time. And she knew the challenges to that, but she felt that the story was strong enough that it needed to be told, and she wanted to be a part of it. And she told Gigliotti, like, I have to. And her performance, too, was subtle in a way, but yet at the same time, she too, sort of kind of like Johnson, she's doing a supervisor's job. She for all intents and purposes, right? She supervised the human computer pool, the African American
30 women who were doing all the work.
Right, and they had lost a supervisor.
She just took over.
Yeah, and she took over, wasn't getting paid for the job, and she asked, but she was doing the work. On top of doing her computing. And one of my favorite scenes, too, in this movie is going to the library. This is a person who is a go-getter. She goes to the library to find a book on how to code for IBM, because they were going to use, I forget the particular coding, and again, that obstacle gets overreached in a very funny way. She's told, oh, well, you can't
paid
be
my
here.
taxes.
You can't be in the white section in the library, but they don't have what I'm looking for, but it doesn't matter. And then on the bus ride home, well, I got my book anyways. Well, isn't that stealing? No, I paid taxes.
It's like, I paid my taxes, and all the taxes paid for every book in that library. Every book in there.
And again, another
so didn't steal what I already owned. It's like, I mean, I think it's just like that delivery of that line was just so on point. And it was funny. Yes, but kind of truthful in a way, and it wasn't not to condone, stealing or whatnot, but like she had a good mindset of like just do what needs to be done. Right. And she was that kind of person.
And she's the mechanic as well. Like she's fixing the car at the beginning of the movie. Again, another great scene. Because the movie more or less, the car's stuck at the side of the road. She's trying to get it started.
I think it was great because I felt like that opening scene with the car and those three women, like, just set the tone for what the movie is going to be like. Absolutely. There's going to be humor already and rapport between these three women, but also like the stereotypes and the knee-jerk reactions people are going to get from them. Right. Like it just set the whole theme of the whole movie in those like 5 minutes. Right.
Yeah, and it's a fantastic scene. And I want to go back to again when I know we're going all over the place, and I want to get to Janelle Monáe because I think she's a standout. Too, but this was interesting as well because the producer Gigliotti was friends with Whoopi Goldberg.
Yeah, and Whoopi expressed her interest.
She was like, "You have to make this movie." She's like, "Can I be in it?" And Gigliotti had to say, and I don't know if this is ageism or what, but she goes, "I love you, but you're 61 years old, and nobody in this movie is above the age of 45." And it didn't work out. She goes, But Whoopi Goldberg was like, "You'll be my hero if you make this. It's unbelievable," and that I didn't know anything about these women, So it's just funny, like how the seeds of this movie were catching on with prominent, talented African American women like Whoopi Goldberg. She has a great career history in film, and she sees it and you got to make this movie. I want to be in it, and it's just. I can't hire you. She goes, it doesn't matter that you have
just make it.
Just make it.
It's a story that needs to be told. Like
so,
I
too.
appreciate that, and I know a lot of people have mixed emotions about Whoopi Goldberg, but like she knows talent, she knows creativity
Sure.
and a good story. So like if she approves, then you know it's going to be a good story.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's go into. I want to talk about Janelle Monáe.
I was very surprised
For
with
a
this
bit.
performance. Like surprised in a good way because most people know her for her music career and not her acting. But
Yeah.
like I think she stood her own, and she's also against Taraji and Octavia, who are like great actresses and award winning on their own merit. But like she had her key scene. No, one of my favorite scenes when she was in the courthouse and talking to the judge, and like she wasn't abrasive and she wasn't overpowering. She just stated clearly, calmly what she wanted and what she needed, and I was like, all right.
And she said that character, Mary Jackson,
Mary
plays.
Jackson.
That scene in particular, she just turned the tables on that judge with a list of firsts
Yeah.
that he was. You could be the first at doing this.
And also, it's
And
like,
all it was for her to go into a high school to take night classes,
take
but it was
classes.
a segregated school.
but like I think that approach was so smart. Like you did all these things, and like no one stopped you from doing it. So like, please, this is just something I want. I want and need to do. Don't stop me from doing it
Yeah.
because you did. You had opportunities presented to you,
Sure.
so this is your opportunity to set this up for me, and I think that was very smart.
Yeah, absolutely. So I don't listen to that kind of pop music. But for whatever reason, Janelle Monáe popped up on my radar, whether because I saw a video of her somewhere. It's not like I don't listen to it, but sometimes I have my finger on the pulse and I'll hear a song or I'll see a video or I'll see somebody. And I don't quite remember where I saw a performance of hers. It was on TV somewhere. And I was like, who is this woman? Because number one, she was striking to me. She had an amazing look about her. She looked very different from any other performer. And she seemed very talented, good voice, but she had a charisma. There's just something about her that, again, for someone who doesn't even listen to pop R&B music, there was just something that I gravitated to, that I was like, wow, there's something about this woman. Who is this woman? And then when I found out that she was going to be in this movie, and the marketing featured each of the women, and on billboards or street
Posters.
signs and such posters, I was like, there's something, I want to see how she does in this movie. And for me, she was amazing. Like, she is a bright, new, smart talent to come into the scene as a woman, as an African American woman, and as a beautiful, she's got beauty, she's got smarts, and she's got charisma. And to me, in Hollywood, that's like a triple threat.
Yeah.
And by smarts, I mean she was quoted as saying, we all bleed the same color.
That's true.
It was very, we all bleed the same color, and she does it in a way much like how she talked to that judge. And she was a breath of fresh air in this movie as a newcomer, and handling her own against the likes of, Taraji P, Henson, Octavia Spencer. She did a great job, and she also, like all of the characters, but she lent humor. She had her, it's not a comedy, but she lent humor that was real. I laughed with her at what she was doing. She was just fantastic as Mary Jackson, I thought.
I thought she was great, and you can definitely tell, like, the way that they established Mary at the beginning was that she has the mouth, and she has the
Attitude.
definitely the attitude that can get her in trouble, and it's been implied that it has gotten her into trouble every once in a while. And like I like they're like, no, you have to keep that to yourself. So like for her, that was a character or a person to always look out for throughout the movie. I was like, is she going to explode on this person right now, or like really speak her mind, or is she gonna be subdued and like take it in? But that's, I think, why I liked the courtroom was that she was calm. And like when I was expecting maybe a little attitude, but she took it in a very professional way, and I enjoyed it. And yeah, I personally don't listen to her music either, like that type of genre either. Nothing against her because apparently she's very talented. So I saw her really just as an actor, and I went into her performances that way. And she has a great career ahead of her.
She's got a magnetism. And again, I noticed this just from her musical performance. There's just something about it. And she was even in a Pepsi commercial, I think, for last year's Super Bowl or something. But there's just something about her that, number one, she can show off like the 20s kind of style fashion. And there's just something about her. I just like, I looked at her and go, who is this woman? Like, she's captivating, but she's captivating on film. Going back to the opening scene again, where she lends humor, she's like, we're three African American women chasing a cop. There's no way I'm gonna slow down. She goes, nobody would believe this, as the cop's giving them an escort to work because they work at NASA.
Yeah, I really enjoy that.
And again, that scene, because you get the Atlanta,
Attitude,
cop,
vibe going.
and then when they showed them their NASA badges, it's like, oh, okay. But she was funny. She was poignant. She could handle the drama in that scene in the courtroom, of course, by becoming an engineer. And again, this is one of the aspects where this movie is inspirational. Set your mind to it. And she played that judge in a sense with smarts and integrity. To get to where she went. So, again, she rounded out this cast of talented, of people who are already established, and seeing her, and I know she's also in this Moonlight movie as well, but if she elects to continue on as an actress, I will love to follow her and see what other roles she takes. I think she's that good. Yeah,
especially, and we've seen so many artists who try to, blend their careers together, or go past beyond just music and always into the acting, and it just kind of seems tired, or like they just try to want to build their names, and it doesn't seem like that. Like, she actually has genuine talent for acting.
She has the chops.
Yeah, she has, like, and you can see musicians who are just terrible at it.
Right.
And but like I don't think so for her. Like, she has a legitimate acting career ahead of her.
Absolutely. So another person I sort of want to talk to, because again, I didn't know this person was in the movie. Okay, not in any of the marketing material that I can recall. Maybe was in a trailer, and if it was in a trailer, completely over my head. Kirsten Dunst.
Oh yeah.
I was like, Kirsten Dunst. She grew up.
Yeah, she grew up.
She grew up, and I liked her. I was like, okay, and she can sort of act. She did a really good job, because that character could have been so hateful, like for an audience, right? And you knew that character was a product of the time. Yeah. And in the end, she has her epiphany, and she says, she
has her moment.
She has her moment. You don't necessarily like her. You don't hate her. And again, it's a performance that could have gone into... She could have played it so over the top and like mean and nasty that you really hated that character, but she didn't. And I was really surprised.
I was surprised too. Like, I've always liked Kirsten Dunst. I don't know why other people don't. But like, I've always enjoyed her career, and I've seen like her from her Jumanji days to now. And I think she was great. Like, because the person can really walk that fine line between you either like them or you like can be really, you could like really hate them. And you said product at the time. It's just that in fairness, there was also Paul Stafford, played by Jim Parsons, who I didn't know was in this film. Who, like, we had both of those viewpoints from a male and a woman about their opinions towards the Black African and women just working in that space. And so, like, I'm glad it wasn't just like the woman who was hating these people, or the men just hating these people. There was a good equal balance of, like, it was coming from everybody.
Yeah, absolutely.
All these opinions about the African American and the segregation and just the equality race that this whole movie is. So, like, I enjoyed it, and I think I liked how and Dorothy Vaughan actually showed her, like, I bet you think you feel like you're not, racist in that way. Like you believe that you're not racist.
Yes.
But and like
I like that you believe that.
Yeah, I like that you believe that.
It
but
was a great line.
Which is so true because it made her come around at the end, be like, you know what?
Yeah.
You are right, and she did help give her an official supervising job.
Yes.
So like.
Yes.
Yeah, she checked herself.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
Now you did mention Jim Parsons, who played Paul Stafford, and I do think he's worth mentioning. It may come to a surprise that people who watch Anatomy of a Movie, people who know me as being a big sci-fi, science fiction person, genre person, I do not like The Big Bang Theory.
You don't?
Nope. I hate it. In fact, I don't like it.
Interesting.
And Jim Parsons' character on that show, I find to be grating. And I know he's supposed to be. I get it. But seeing him in this movie, I was like, huh, okay. He in this element, I liked him. And again, much like Kirsten Dunst, he product of the time, the competition in the mathematics pool there, and he didn't like not just a woman, an African American woman who had to check his work. So that as a mathematician, there is a sense of egotism because I'm the person who's going to solve the problem.
My math is on point.
Math is on point, and again,
my numbers are not wrong.
Right, he could have been a character that you just hate, but he walked that fine line, as you said earlier too, and I think he did a really good job. And in the end too, he has his moment with Taraji P. Henson about because there was a theme throughout the movie that she would put her name, Catherine would put her name on the memo and he'd say computers don't get their names, author this thing.
Yeah, computers don't give authorization.
And at the end, we see that they actually are now working together. And I thought that he did, I think it's, I have to say, because I'm not a fan of the Big Bang Theory or that character, but I have to give credit where credit is due, that I think he did a really good job in this movie. And I felt good about him. I was like, well, good. I'm glad you can act. And you're above and beyond, and I get Big Bang Theory's that's your meal ticket, but it was good to see him out of that element to an extent. I mean, he's still a mathematician, but I thought he was really good.
Yeah, and Jim Parsons says he even had a difficult time with this particular role because this person is on the wrong side of history, and but like he accepted it, and he was really excited because he actually worked with Ted Melfi earlier on commercials and stuff. So, and Ted was the one who introduced the script to him, and he's like, "Yeah, definitely count me in."
Yeah. So, it was a good turn by him. Now, again, can't not talk about Kevin Costner. Okay, Kevin Costner is bona fide. Like, this was a man in the '80s going into the '90s, was $100 million man. Most every movie that he touched back in the day, whether it be a Bull Durham, whether it be The Bodyguard, whether it be Robin Hood, that this guy was a moneymaker in Hollywood. Dances with Wolves, people will argue about getting an Oscar, but, he's a director as well. In this movie, we talked about him, I believe we were together when we did McFarland USA, right? Which a very underappreciated, right? Yeah. But McFarland USA was a very underappreciated sports movie about this high school running, and he was fantastic in it. This, to me, was a fantastic performance. I'm like, why? It's almost like they're hiding Kevin Costner, to me. I knew he was in the trailer, but he's not. And again, it's a performance that was so good. And again, he has his moment after Catherine explodes on him. There's that great moment when he walks all the way over with the mallet to knock down the colored bathroom sign. Again, another scene in which a lot of applause in my theater, but he was so good. Now, I know his character is a composite of other his character was fictionalized. His character was written for the movie.
Yeah.
But he was so good in it that and what he lent, like there was true like he didn't care about color. It's like, I just need this job to be done. Can you do the job?
And he didn't care about women, or like
No,
he didn't care
male,
about
female,
if,
right,
if it was a
gender.
male
Right.
or a woman.
And the scene where he gets her into the meeting, because, sir, I need to be in that meeting because you keep on changing, and if I don't know when you know,
Like, I can't do the math.
I can't do the
if
math.
you're changing it.
And another great scene is because she wasn't cleared for things, so she would get certain equations, but they would be redacted, like with Sharpie.
Actions.
And she's like, "How can I do this? How can I figure out an equation?" Well, you're not classified. Yeah, it's classified. You know, it's a different level, grade, security grade. And then she looks up at the light. He's like, "By the way, how did you figure that out?" She goes, "I just put it up into the light." He goes, "Put it."
Yep,
she goes,
there it
Yep,
is.
there it is.
I love
It's a
that.
great scene.
It's a great moment.
It's
It's like so simple. You're like, yeah, you should have thought about that. Yeah, I did. I really did like this performance. I don't think it was outside of Kevin Costner's wheelhouse because, you know, he's capable of being in this type of leadership role. I completely believed him. I thought he was great because there were like just peppered moments throughout the whole movie that like just made me like his character for who he was.
Yeah.
That, you know, not really judging. He just wanted to get the job done. Like, so that I appreciated. The moment when he's like, no, give her clearance so she can actually do the work. And I think one of the best moments, it was near the end of the film after she just did all the math for the launch for John Glenn.
Right.
And then the door was literally slammed in her face, and he comes back out and gives her proper clearance to get into the room. I was like,
Come in.
yeah, all right, he's a good guy.
Yeah.
Because like she did do the work, and it is because of her the reason why they were able to do the launch. And that's the least he could do is just get her into the room.
Get her into the room, particularly because preceding that scene was the scene where he had to let her go. Mm-hmm. And you could tell that from a personal level, that character, albeit that character didn't exist, but the way that Costner portrayed that character, there was a sense of loss, but not just on a professional level, but a personal level. He liked, that character liked Katherine Johnson, not for her brains, but she stood up for herself, and he appreciated that. And that was a hard scene. That was a sad scene. You know, a tough scene to say, I gotta let you go. He goes, but I gotta work to I need you. Like, he knew that he needed her in some capacity.
Stick around, though.
To stick around. So, the scene where, John Glenn calls her out because she has that amazing conversation. Now, this Glen Powell is another guy who plays John Glenn. And when you talk about charisma, like, this is John Glenn. And, he listened to Katherine in her computations, and he, too, is, wowed, and he respects her. And this is the other thing, too. These women earn the respect. Mm-hmm. Not because of gender or color. They earn the respect because of the way that they carried themselves and their smarts. When it came to go time, where John Glenn is actually in space, he's like, you know what? I need Katherine's. Forget about the IBM. I need the
smart one.
I need the smart one. I need the smart one. Get her on it. And they had to call her because she was back in the computing pool. But it's a great scene. And this Glen Powell as John Glenn was really solid as well.
I liked him. And for the small amount of time for such a pivotal character he was, it made me believe, John Glenn. And I think it's just interesting timing. I mean, unfortunately, John Glenn just passed away, but I think it was good timing that both of those, it just happened to coincide with his death in this movie. And I think it was just very interesting to see what actually happened with the launch. A lot of people, again, it opened up the audience's eyes for people don't realize everything that went on during the launch. Like the fact that they literally did more calculations literally before the launch, minutes before the launch.
Right.
I appreciated that, and like in just it just showed John Glenn and like how likable he is,
Right.
for also giving the same opportunity to a woman doing this, doing the work.
Right, and again,
There's no judgment.
No judgment at all. And again, what's very interesting and fascinating, if you watch the movie The Right Stuff, which has Chuck Yeager, John Glenn, Gus Grissom, who's mentioned in this movie, Buzz Aldrin, like these were the people that history focused on, and again, The Right Stuff is a wonderful movie about American courage and heroism. Yet we never knew this other side of The Right Stuff. So when you see a person who's in the right stuff, like a John Glenn, who's actually relying on this woman, like I found that to be, it's almost like Hidden Figures is a footnote, is this wonderful footnote to The Right Stuff, because as courageous as these pilots were to do what they were going to do, there was this whole other side. Like, yes, we knew that NASA existed. We knew that they had that ground control team, but that these women were so integral that John Glenn himself says, "I want the smart one." To me, it just ties in like the continuity. It just ties in like just wonderfully into what we already know about NASA. And about those great space explorations in the early years, that space race. So I found it to be a wonderful I find this movie to be a wonderful companion piece, because this is a side that we never saw, even in those great movies. It's never brought up that they had to rely on these things, on these women. So,
and no one really thinks about like the mathematics and the science that goes into launching someone into space,
right?
Just so they can orbit around the Earth a few times, and they had the exact mathematics to have the exact type of landing, give it a few miles, give or take, I never realized it, but that I really enjoyed the scene where Paul Stafford was explaining, like, we have to go into an elliptical orbit, into a parabolic orbit,
right?
And the different types of masses that go into that, and like how they actually have to execute it, and it has to be like right on point, or the whole thing just disintegrates. I thought that was interesting. No one thinks about that.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit too about the production. I want to talk about cinematography, because we always talk cinematography. I love talking cinematography. It gives direction. It's how the film looks and feels. And here in this movie, being that we are talking about a movie about women, inspiring and such, this woman, actually the director of photography, was a woman, Mandy Walker. Now there aren't that many
3%
female cinematographers.
3%.
Yeah, and here and Melfi says, I want to go with her. And man, the look of the film does actually capture something that's unexpected and incredible beauty of these women and their houses and their lives. And I think Mandy captured the time period perfectly. I think this movie looked amazing up on the big screen, because we do have to have the home life, we have to have the work life. What is mission control going to look like? What's this mathematician's room? And if you notice too, there was clearly a different color palette in the computing room.
Stark contrast.
Right?
Yeah.
I think that she did this wonderful job, and the way that it was lit, and it was filmed on film. She used
35
film.
millimeter.
And I found that to be refreshing. I don't know whether, why aren't there more female cinematographers? Maybe it's not, I don't know. I don't know, but she did a fantastic job.
Why aren't there just more females working behind the scenes? And I get it. Again, it's an industry that's mostly dominated by males.
Yeah.
And I think it's very fitting that 35% of the production crew on this film were females.
Yeah.
Telling a female story. And I really enjoyed that. Yeah, she also used film because she said it had the look, because it is a period piece, that film can actually It showed the rich colors and the textures and the grain
And
that
light.
it did back then properly compared to what digital can.
Yeah.
So
And
like she really wanted to get the look back then.
And she actually shot on Panavision anamorphic lenses, and they used old Kodak stock to do that. So, and then of course, there's things like outside of that, we had production designer Wynne Thomas and the costume designer Renee Kalfas also put it in. But, Thomas says there was an incredible exchange of ideas on the look of the movie. We spent a whole time of looking at, and this is the other thing, inspirational photographs and talking about composition. And when you're shooting on film, you need a lot more light. And so we really work closely to provide light to support Mandy's wonderful photography. So again, we always talk about the collaborative effort. And here's a fine example where the production designer is talking about, we're trying to give as much light so that our cinematographer can work and get what she needs. And this is what we want to do. And, so it was, and I also appreciate that they, not necessarily trying to recreate NASA precise, but they're trying to create the spirit of NASA at the time. And I think the spirit of NASA, I think the spirit of that time really oozes out in this film. And maybe that's another thing that struck a chord with me, is coming out feeling good, because, it was so, that's what you get from NASA. You felt that way.
The interesting thing that I read about Mandy Walker, for two different things. That the stark contrast between like the women's homes when they weren't working, like they were rich in color and like a brownish and but like bright color tones, and compared to NASA, which was like all white and stark white and more modern day, because like NASA was with the whole IBMs, like they were on the cusp of like new technology, so they were like type of futuristic looking. And also that she said just the perspective of the camera changed of the film. At the beginning, they would film the black African American woman like at a higher angle. Therefore, they're always looking up towards the men when they're speaking in dialogue scenes. But throughout the film, it slowly changes and it gets more to eye level, that the women are on the same level as the men now compared to where they were at the beginning. And it's a subtle change, but like you wouldn't really think it. And that's what I appreciated. Just like it shows again the equality that they eventually reach at the end of the film.
And the movie was shot in Atlanta, and they used this Morehouse College as the exterior of NASA's facilities, and NASA had been designed to function like a college campus, so the filmmakers got a kick out of using one of the nation's oldest black universities to stand in its stead. And they said building featured in the films included there's a Frederick Douglass Hall that's in there, and that circular building dominates the campus, so they used that as the exterior of the Space Task Group. The real Space Task Group was not a circular environment, but it makes the space so visually interesting. So, again, I liked the changes that they used because it was used for efficiency in filming, and you can see everybody. So I totally get that, and I think that from a production design level, whether it's the cars that people are driving or the households that they're living in, I thought that I felt that I was in that time period, and I felt what that time period put out there, because there's lots going on, but when it came to NASA and the space race, there was this, there was like Go America. It was a brighter color. So.
To add to that, Wynne Thomas, the production designer, said that the interior sets were all practical as well. And that means like the brick buildings, the interior pieces, the ladders and desks in which they stood on, they were all practical. Like they were literally standing on those ladders doing the chalkboard equations and stuff like that. So it was a working set.
Yeah, which is fantastic. And then you had the costumes. Renee Kalfas immersed herself into Southern fashions of the early 60s. And then she had to costume these three characters, so each one looks different. And you can tell that Taraji P. Henson Johnson is she's more the matriarch of the group. Like, she has the kids. They all have like families, but she definitely stands out as major act. And even when you look at this picture, you look at the colors that they're wearing, I found that was very interesting. And Kalfas goes on and she says, we used a real mix of things, hand making some outfits, but also seeking out vintage pieces. I started just by looking at tons of clothing catalogs from that time, and we got our hands on several Sears and Ward's catalogs, as well as other from the period, and that was a great education. And I think that's hysterical that you would go back to old Sears catalogs, for that. But everybody's, the costuming was, I thought, really, and again, everything fit the period. Nothing stood out. Like everything fit to where it needed to be, and I thought they did a fantastic job.
I noticed the wardrobe as well, and I thought they were gorgeous for especially the 60s. I always noticed when Taraji P. Henson Johnson, when she was standing amongst all those guys in white shirts and black ties, she was always in a different color.
Right.
And she was in a green dress or a blue dress. She literally always stood out among the men, and I really enjoyed that. And even the costume designer purposely chose that for her color palette. And they all the women back then, they had to wear girdles.
Yeah, and she totally stuck out in the Space Task Force room, as opposed to everybody else. And the one woman who I believe was like the secretary there, but she really stood out. So and again, it just goes back to collaboration. So when your director of photography is working with a production designer, and then they're working with the costume designer and the director to get this vision, I think they succeeded. There is one person that we didn't talk about. I have to jump back to acting, and that's the Marshala Ali, who played Colonel Jim Johnson, who's the romantic interest for Johnson's character. He's a guy. This is the guy from House of Cards. If you watched House of Cards, no. He's also in this Moonlight movie. It's getting a lot of word, but this guy is being seen in a lot of movies. And there's a great scene when he first meets Johnson, and he underestimates her.
Oh, you know what? Like I think he did a good job. Yeah. I think it was just like the way he was portrayed. He just rubbed me the wrong way. Sure. I think it was because of his first interaction. Mm-hmm. But I'm glad that Johnson stood up to him and actually put him in his place. I was like, yeah, you go, woman. Yeah. But that just made me dislike the guy, because I was like, okay, his visions are that low.
So you didn't warm up to him after he apologized.
Not fully, because I knew what he was capable of. He had those snap judgments and he made assumptions about her. I'm like, no. And the fact that she was so easy to forgive, I'm like,
Interesting. See, I didn't think that she was
and then
so
eventually
easy to forgive,
he
because
warmed up
he
because
apologized. She goes, yeah, you haven't apologized yet.
Yeah, exactly. And that was also the thing. I was waiting for that, and he didn't clearly apologize, and I'm like, you know what, dude? Really no, if that happened to me, I would have checked him out and been next. So I have a good for her that they got engaged and she got over it.
And
but
I like that scene.
It just, for me personally, it just bothered me that he was a guy who made the snap judgments and assumptions about her.
Sure.
So wrong.
Yeah.
I'm glad she put him in his place.
Yeah.
But
absolutely.
After that, I just every time I saw him, I was like, nah, done.
Yeah, she learned him well. And
I just checked out with him.
But I really liked how that romance evolved, and I like the proposal scene at the dinner table, and I like the fact that he says, "I know."
You call that a proposal?
Yeah. Well, what was it? I mean, it was a proposal scene. He did it in the family. He said, "I have to marry your children as well," and the kids seemed to be on board.
It was cute.
It was cute.
I was just checked out with him.
I gotcha. I heard it. Interesting. Was anybody else? I want to know. Is anybody else checked out with him too? So, but he's a guy that we're starting to see more and more in movies. I think that I like him as an actor. I think that he's really good. So, what else? Do we need to talk a little bit maybe about? Well, do we want to talk a little bit about music?
Oh yes.
Because Pharrell, he composed and wrote two songs.
He did.
For the movie, and he also
Running
worked with,
and I See Victory.
and he worked with Hans Zimmer. Who this didn't seem the typical Hans Zimmer score.
I
which
noticed
was
more
thankful.
Pharrell than Hans Zimmer.
Yeah,
honestly.
Did you? Did you?
Yeah,
Yeah.
like I personally don't really like Pharrell his music, but like I think that it worked well for the feel of the movie.
Yeah, and I thought I thought that the music was suited the movie. It didn't overpower the movie. I thought that it suited it really well.
I thought we heard running a few times. Every time she went to the
Yeah.
bathroom, which was a lot.
Yeah.
They were always playing running. I was like, okay, I get it. She's running.
she's
She's
running.
literally running to the bathroom, over and over and over again.
Right.
It was like I got it after the first time.
No.
Like you didn't need to play it 5 times.
No.
So
I hear you. So all right. So then, we could talk about box office, but I want to talk about too because it's in relation to box office. So the budget of this movie is estimated around $25 million, which is actually lower than
That's
I
low.
anticipated.
yeah.
So, and we're looking at as of yesterday, the movie's brought in $34+ million, and the movie opened up in limited release on Christmas Day, December 25th, and then it went wide on January 6th. So, my thing is about this movie, which was distributed by Fox. This movie.
Why limited?
Well, yeah, I just this movie seems to in spite of whatever little marketing. Why are more people not talking about this movie? Like, I know that they are because it did it was the dark horse. It in its opening weekend, it actually beat Rogue One, which was in its 4th week, granted, but Rogue One was having a run at the tables.
Yeah.
And this movie, Hidden Figures, which sort of like seemed to come out of like nowhere. I mean, there was marketing done, and it ended up beating Rogue One, but we're not hearing about this Golden Globes, awards. I mean, we're in the thick of awards and such, and I'm like,
This movie's getting nominations already.
but it's not being discussed as a serious like type of contender where I'm feeling like Kevin Costner is supporting, obviously Octavia Spencer. I mean, I think
Taraji.
Taraji
needs more recognition for this.
I think the movie needs more recognition outside of being number 1 at the box office. Like, the word of mouth, I don't know. I mean, why did you release it on Christmas Day limited? Because I don't think anybody knew that it had come out.
Yeah, I think the problem is like it might just be our opinions because we are in Hollywood and we're surrounded by movies. I feel like the movies that want to get more recognition during award seasons start limited and then get released wide. And I feel like that was kind of the approach that they were going for, that they'll start limited, maybe get that good word of mouth out there and then go wide. La La Land. There's so many movies do that. La La Land, Lion, especially this award season. I feel
get
like
it.
They're trying to
But
be exclusive, and then that's what makes them special.
I get that. I understand that. But I knew when La La Land was coming out. I had heard about La La Land. I had heard about Manchester by the Sea, okay? And this movie had been screened, and I'm trying to figure out
Do you think it
what
is?
the hell? Like,
Do you think it is because it features 3 prominent women that are Black African American?
I would
I'd hope
hope not.
I'd
Like,
hope
I would
not,
hope
but
not,
like,
but why?
you have to think about that. Maybe that is a turn off for some people. Maybe that like is not getting the recognition that it should.
Because the total budget of the movie, including hard drives, advertising, we're going to estimate it about 50 to 60 million, right? So on Rotten Tomatoes, it's a 93%, which is a pretty damn
That's
high mark. Now, but the other thing though is that the cinema score is a very rare and extremely rare A+. Okay. Audiences are loving this movie. I want to know why the hell, prior to it being release limited, Fox had to know what they had. Why was I not aware of this movie as I would be aware of a La La Land or Manchester by the Sea? Like, at least sort of, kind of.
Maybe the promotion as well. It's like I only saw a trailer for this film.
I saw a trailer
times.
and I saw some billboards and I saw the bus shelters and I saw like the like street construction, like the outdoor. But that was it. But I wasn't seeing things like on TV about this is like one of the most feel-good movies of the year. Like the advertising on this movie, it's like, why were you hiding it? Why was it?
It was hidden. Hidden Figures was hidden.
Because again, I don't think a movie like this should be hidden. I know now it's made its due because it opened up at #1 and everybody's loving this movie and it's getting fantastic word of mouth. But it shouldn't have been such. But it should have relied on a little bit more outside of. I mean, it's a great movie. So Fox, what the hell? Like, why were you sort of kind of hiding this movie from the general public? Like, to me, this movie is unique because we don't have anything else out there like it. When you look at movies like Manchester by the Sea and even Fences, which we're going to talk about a little later today, you know, and even to an extent, La La Land. I know La La Land's a musical. It's beautiful. It's vibrant. It pops. But as we said, the couple doesn't end up together. You know, I mean,
but I feel like this movie could be in contention for Best Picture.
I agree.
And it should be.
And why shouldn't it be? Like, what happened to the feel? My question is, what happened to the feel-good movie? Like, we don't have it. Like, this whole year has been rot. Again, yes, I get it. Superhero movies, big-budgeted franchise movies, you know. But every time that we try, like, and I understand the gravitation towards La La Land because, A, it is original and it looks beautiful
It's
on
a
screen.
visual spectacle rather than... If you're going for story, you're not going to get it.
But, you know, right here we have an amazing story that hasn't been told. It's a true story. You know, I think that it should, at the very least, get an adapted screenplay nomination. Mm-hmm. And there should be some actor nominations in there, and it should be like if you're going to be doing 10 nominations in the Academy Award, this deserves to be nominated for Best Picture, because I really do believe that it is, and I think it's a picture that if just for me, I needed it. I'm going to be selfish. I can't speak for the entire country, but I needed it. I needed to walk out of a movie at some point
and feel good.
It's been so depressing this year.
Yeah.
I want to stop being depressed, and this movie helped.
I hear you. I mean, and I feel like this movie is slowly getting some recognition. I mean, it's already received 2 SAG nominations this year for Best Ensemble, and Octavia Spencer for supporting role, as well as 2 Golden Globe noms, and also the original score by Hans Zimmer, Pharrell Williams, and Benjamin Wallfish.
Yeah.
So, like, it's getting recognition in different places. It should get recognition for Best Picture for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I think slowly, as people, maybe they are expecting the good word of mouth, and, you know, that can actually work for a film. So, and we still have a good amount of time until Oscars come about. So we have a full month and a half for people to watch this film and then realize, yeah, this could definitely get.
Yeah, I get it. I just wanted more. I wanted more talk, like when you're seeing something like the Golden Globes on that stage, whether I agree or whether I like the Golden Globes. But, like, you know, you already knew going in, like, you know, you knew La La Land, Moonlight, you knew Manchester by the Sea. I think this got nominated for something, and I believe one of the actresses got nominated, perhaps. But I wanted more talk around
Spencer.
Octavia Spencer. I wanted more talk surrounding this movie. Like, I wanted this to be highlighted more.
Well, we're talking about it now.
In award season. No, we are. But, you know, and we'll do our part. I just believe that it's a movie that deserves it, because again, everything's earned in this movie. There's nothing that. What I hate the most is these types of movies that are manipulative. Like, it didn't manipulate my emotions. It earned every single emotion, good emotion that I had. And I think that's rare in a lot of movies today, unless it's a heavy drama in one way, shape, or form. And I've just had my fill with heavy. Fantastic movies, but just heavy. So, I don't know. We had some live people up here. I don't know if they're still on the board and if they're still watching and listening. I don't know what they have to say, but if they are, we can give a shout out to them and see maybe what they might have to say for any comments. But we could also start wrapping up while we're looking for any comments.
Thanks for tuning in.
Yeah,
everyone.
thank you for tuning in. Oh, well, I can see live chat. What do we have? What do we have? Can you blow that up more? There we go. So, you were doing a good job. Oh, whoever, Edison, is that the name? Edison Chamberlain. Yeah. Well, thank you very much for your kind words. So yeah, we have a couple of hey guys from Jack. Thank you very much for reaching out. What's your name of the movie? It's Hidden Figures. Not Hidden Fences, Hidden Figures. It's Hidden Figures. Well, we want to know what you think, and we always open up to conversation because that's the best part about movies, is the conversation that happens afterwards.
Do you guys think this movie should get Best Picture nomination?
Absolutely. Were you as affected as I was, as we were? Did you think that it was, did you really think it was a good movie? Right?
I really did.
Yeah, I did too. I thought that this movie works from beginning to end. I came out feeling, number one, I'm glad that I learned about this story. Mm-hmm. And I would tell people, if you haven't seen the movie The Right Stuff, watch it or read the book, but watch the movie. Fantastic movie. And then this is a wonderful companion piece to that movie, and I think it's inspirational.
Yeah, and I'll just leave you with a couple tidbits.
Yeah.
Now 98 years old Johnson, in 2015, received the Presidential Medal of Freedom. And Dorothy Vaughan mastered the computer programming and helped the agency transition from human IBM computers, which we knew, but she became the first black female engineer and a leader in research on the supersonic flight.
Oh.
Women can be rocket scientists, so yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm all for that.
Absolutely. Me too. I'm all for it. I'm all for this movie. Like I said, it became my number one movie of 2016. Even though I saw it in 2017, it was released in 2016. Mm-hmm. I think more should be being said about this and that it should get more recognition. I hope you folks think so too. I want to thank you again for tuning in. We're going to wrap up this show. We've got plenty more. We're going to have so much to discuss this year.
More Academy films coming out.
More Academy movies that are going wide. We'll have movies like Fences. We'll have movies like Patriots Day. So we have a lot more movies. We have a whole year ahead of us to talk movies with you folks, and wanted to say thank you again for tuning in. Happy New Year. Hope your 2017 is great. We'll see you at the movies. Thanks, Marisa. It's such a pleasure
Demetri.
coming back. I hope you feel better.
Hope you feel better.
Yeah, you and me both, kid.
We're both there, but we're here.
Yeah, we're here, but it's great to see you again.
Yeah.
And great to be by your side. It's always a pleasure, it truly is. And it's great to be by your side, folks. Thank you very much for watching. Bye-bye.
From producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the rest of the Anatomy of a Movie staff, we would like to thank you for listening and subscribing to the show. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to email or tweet us. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been Anatomy of a Movie.